Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's David Palmer and Leo King here on highvibe.tv. And tonight we are here live at the High Vibe TV studios, and we have another fellow High Viber here, which I've done an interview with before. Shakti Ma is in the house. She's been here all week, and we thought that we would do an awesome talk. Not so much of an interview, I think, just more of talking about some of the crazy things that are going on in the universe right now. If you don't know Shakti Ma, you can check her out, of course, by finding her all over the web, and we'll put her links down below on the YouTube video once this is done. And of course, at the same time, you can find her on High Vibe, where she's doing so many amazing transmissions, and she does an awesome Sunday live show on our network. She does a lot, so you're definitely going to want to check her out. And she has been a great light in my life, and we've known each other almost coming up on a couple of years, you know, so it's been pretty awesome. Mm-hmm. How are you?
Definitely. Ooh, didn't have my microphone. I am fantastic. I've had so much fun here this week.
You've been loving the vibe?
I'm loving the vibe. This is such an amazing studio. You've done a wonderful job.
Oh, thank you.
Truly.
Well, it's not just me. It's been everybody, including you, by the energy that you put on to High Vibe. And it's a collective energy. I always like to say we show up to High Vibe just as much as everybody who else does, whether you're a viewer or contributor or whatever. We're all showing up to the same place at the same time, and some sort of magic is happening all the time.
Some sort of magic.
And that's really what it is. I feel like that's what kind of the world we're in is. I think if people focused a little bit more on where we're showing up with an intention of some, you know, whether it's just the basics of love or just positivity, but it's about wanting to connect. I think that this is a world right now that feels so disconnected, yet there's so much beautiful places to connect to right now that I kind of find it fascinating to see people seeing more of the holes with an H instead of the holes with a W right now.
Have you ever seen The Black Hole by Nassim Haramein?
Yeah.
That is such an amazing, I highly recommend everybody watch that.
Yeah. No, I know. It's pretty wild. Well, it's
yeah.
funny that the whole black hole theory, we saw the black hole like picture. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
In like it was Jupiter and Sag, it was 2019. And I was like, oh, is that the butthole of the universe? You know, I guess there would be one. But there's a lot about dark matter and black holes and all this kind of stuff that you know, especially astrophysicists and stuff, like they just can't get it right. They're making just, you know, hypotheses all the time, and a lot of people take it as automatic truth, and then it's not. We're seeing more light and more connectiveness in the galaxies. Even they're not separate. They all fan into each other.
Definitely.
That everything that is coming out with trying to show a disconnection to me lately to maybe help people feel more comfortable through life is like, actually, it's not that way. Everything in the divine is connected, and everywhere you're seeing the feeling of disconnection is usually not from the divine.
Yeah, and it's honestly what you believe, right? Do you believe that we're truly connected? Or do you believe or attempt to kind of believe that, but it doesn't really sink in for you? Right? Because if we really believe that we're connected, you have all of this amazing synchronicity, you know, You have people calling you right as you're thinking about them. You have telepathy. I'm constantly experiencing telepathy. You can't say that we're not connected and then experience telepathy. But the more that we focus on it, the more that we believe in it, the more, of course, we experience it.
I agree. Especially we were just on Full Disclosure just right before the show. And you know, I agree with you 100%, and I've been preaching it a lot, and you said it in your own unique way, but it's just like, you just know, like spirit, you just like know.
Yeah.
You just know, especially you're a channeler, you are an amazing channeler and an intuitive, which to me I feel are two in the same, but I feel like a channeler is an intuitive that actually does something with it. I feel like an intuitive is one that's like, okay, I can see it, can understand it, I feel it, but I don't really, like, okay, I'm maybe guiding myself with it, but I feel like a channeler is here to like, I am bringing down this really powerful energy from the universe, and I am channeling it to like a waterfall, like pipeline that's just like a fire hose.
Yeah.
That's what you are. Like when your energy and your guides come in, it's just like a fire hose. It's like, and I admire that so much about you, because I feel that I'm in that same space, and that's not an easy thing to find out there. Even though right now, the way that you can calm yourself down a lot better than I can. Maybe it's the Libra in you, right? That it's just like wham, it's just so powerful. And I feel like during these times, people can be sensitive to a lot of things that are happening right now, but I think a lot of this sensitivity on the planet, this may sound kind of a little crazy, but I think a lot of the sensitivity on the planet is like not as warranted as need be. I think that it's a lot of false stuff that's going around that people are falling to or they're victims to the things that are making them hypersensitive, because I think it's more in their head and questioning the divine, which they don't even know they're questioning the divine. What do you feel like?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really fall for the whole sensitive thing, quite frankly. It's funny because I'm super sensitive, but at the same time, I feel like when you're in your power, there's sensitivity. You're open to energy. You can hear energy. You can channel energy. But at the same time, you are in a high frequency of love, and so you're not really sensitive in vulnerability. You're not vulnerable to the outside world, right? You're powerful.
Yeah, or it's like I feel like of course, the word sensitive is not a negative connotation. But I think the word sensitive has turned into a negative connotation, as if people are associating I'm sensitive, meaning okay, you're sensitive to the weaker form of yourself that's not feeling well, or are you sensitive to the beauty and the love? Sensitive can go anywhere.
Definitely.
Are you using sensitive face wash because your face is sensitive? Whatever, that's fine. But it's in the spiritual community, it's well, I'm really sensitive. It's so it's really not defined. Sensitive isn't a noun; it's a verb, pretty much. It's an act. It's an action-oriented element, right? It's you can't define sensitive without a noun before it. What are you sensitive about? And I feel like a lot of people are getting lost into verbs. I want to be happy. It's okay, about doing what though?
Right.
And what's happening is scapegoats are going around in the spiritual community too. Well, I can't figure out my life right now because, the pandemic or because of this and it's these are lessons we all learned for a long time, whether there was a pandemic or not or whatever, of there's always something we can come up with a scapegoat of why we can't step into our power. And I feel like this has created the ultimate test for those who are what do you mean this is the moment to step into my power the most?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I call upon it often when people are saying, well, I'm empathic and therefore I can't be in large crowds, or I can't do this, or I can't do that, or I'm too sensitive to be around these particular energies. And again, it's not necessarily a negative thing, but are we victimizing ourselves through those labels? Right? Because we can either choose to be powerful within our sensitivity, because it is a superpower.
Yeah.
It's a superpower to be able to feel all the subtle energies in the universe, to be able to tap into other people's space, to be able to, have conversations with energy. That's amazing. So you can either choose to empower yourself within that moment, or you can choose to victimize yourself. And that's honestly a choice, and there isn't a right or a wrong. But you have to understand that you are making that choice.
Yeah, and I think that we all have minor processes that we have to go through of accepting, because that's what it is are we going to accept this energy like a crowd per se? It's a process of just crossing over it's not a sensitivity, it's whether or not you're going to join it or not. That's all it is. I think that it's becoming too cloudy of right, and it's becoming too complex, and it's mental, it's psychological, it's not spiritual. Spiritual is just okay, if you don't resonate with it, then that's it. I don't feel like being around this crowd right now, because intuitively spirits instead of I'm just sensitive because of people. What if those are the most amazing people in the world? You're going to say that, you're sensitive to crowds, but I guarantee you put that person around people that they already know or or whatever, they're not sensitive, right? So it's you're not, maybe you're just weird about stepping into seeing what's on the other side of some unknown thing, which I think the unknown is the most powerful place of where power comes from.
Yes.
Because divinity is known but unknown at the same time. While at the same time, the mysteries and the unknown of the future and where things really go is where I think many people channel so much of that power from. I was like, that's exciting. That's the thrill of life. Like, who knows what it's in this next door? Like, it would be pretty boring down here without that energy.
I mean, I feel like the unknown is what creates discomfort. But at the same time, when we face that discomfort, right, that's where we expand. The unknown is our availability to expand because it's not known yet. So there's expansion possible there.
And actually, I love that you said discomfort, because it's almost like right now, there's a lot of people feeling discomfort. I feel discomfort on certain things every day as well. But if we were more vocal about, hey, I'm just uncomfortable at this moment, and not being afraid. Like if I were to tell you right now, like, I don't know, let's say if I was uncomfortable sitting here live right now, and if I were to just be like, hey, you know what? I'm actually kind of feeling uncomfortable. But if then you would reach out a hand and be like, what do you need? And then that's actually self-care. It's not about like this overreaching of help, but it's just being aware of like, hey, like I'm uncomfortable, instead of the scapegoat of like, I'm just sensitive and because you're actually not asking for help, and you're not trying to figure out the discomfort of what do you need, David? You needed a Sprite? Like, oh, that was it. Like, oh, okay.
Yep.
There's so much right now I feel that is overblown right now. And people are riding it hard, you know, like that direction, while others are riding the powertrain of the universe and the divinity hard. So I'm like, man, you know, like.
Because that's vulnerability, right? Like to be able to say like, hey, I'm not feeling it right now. I need some help. That takes vulnerability, which ultimately is courage. And again, is a superpower.
It is a superpower, because you're going to get to the other side. That's superpowers that are getting you to the other side, where it's like, I'm a little uncomfortable right now. When you just let people just know like something simple like that, it's just like, oh, well, what do you need? But we'll make it better. It's like, well, I'm kind of uncomfortable. Well, why don't we walk around? Maybe there's a little hole in the crowd that doesn't have so many people. And then maybe that side has more light, or maybe because it's too bright, you need a little bit more darkness. Who knows? Whatever. It's simple shit.
Yep. Or move away from that particular person that you're nearby, that you're not fully aware that they're,
And so I feel that a lot of questions are going on in the world right now, of course. And again, a lot of this is coming from the boob tube, right? It's like there's a program that's running, and a lot of people are sensitive, if we're going to use that word. But let's actually do what you had said earlier, which I love, is there's a discomfort about the world. But how much of that world is really real is, I think, a question I have for you. I mean, what you're feeling right now.
So I don't see any of the world as ultimately real, right? I keep saying how we're literally walking through a house of mirrors. So you're literally walking through your reality, and it's just this constant reflection of you. But that reflection is all your different beliefs, right? So you can imagine that you go into one of those like crazy houses with like the distorted mirrors. So you have all this like distortion from limiting beliefs in yourself. So that is literally what you're creating your reality with. Now, obviously, there's a collective humanity, so we're all also creating a part of that. But when you really own your power and don't victimize yourself within that house of mirrors, so saying like, oh my God, that's what I really look like? That's who I am? Instead, you say, no, that's not what I look like. That's not who I am. This is who I am. And now you start to recreate your reality within that house of mirrors. So, you know, I like to empower people through the understanding that your reality is a direct reflection. And sometimes this initially really throws people for a loop and almost throws them off, right? Like they don't want to, not everybody wants to take responsibility for their reality.
Yeah.
So when you tell them like you're creating it, you know, they get pissed sometimes. But when you get over that, and when you really see the beauty of that, what that means is now you are 100% in the driver's seat.
Yeah. And a much better awareness of what's going on is going to make you more aware of how to be better in life and how to make life better itself instead of feel stuck.
Right.
Which I think a lot of people feel stuck, but it's not like, you know, there's mud holding everything back at the moment. Sure, I'm an astrologer. There's planets like Saturn's about to retrograde, and it can bring some frustrations. And there's definitely like times in life where we might feel stuck, but really the universe is always, even through astrology, being like, hey, this is a reflection of like, why don't you try this direction? Maybe you just keep doing this, and this, and the astrology will point out what that is, and it's like, that helps, right? But it's like, it doesn't matter with the astrology or not the astrology. I feel like that there's these traps that have been set by ourselves, but there is a program running too of another weird artificial force. That's what I've been really focused on in a lot of the work that I've been doing, and what I've been seeing in the astrology is there's like a, when I say it's artificial, it's just not divine. It's not from the divine. It's like there's this other force that's trying to almost like go against the divine, that's trying to, it's trickster energy too. It's like trying to trick people into thinking that, you know, the divine's the wrong way.
Right.
Which a lot of people are tricked to not even know that's the trick, right? It's like, you know, and we've seen this in history before, but when we're at this place in time, and with technology and with the media and news and our phones and, you know, there's so much sensitivity, to use that, and discomfort because I think a lot of people are too afraid to see what's happening, right? Like, and to also be like, what's real. I like how you said that, you know, is this earth really real? I don't, probably, you know, it's like, I don't think so, right? Because I think what's real is only the divine and what comes through there.
Exactly.
And our moment-to-moment experience of that.
Yep.
Everything else is an imagination in our head, or a contemplation of things, or getting lost into thoughts of the future. How do you think people can, not only through facing the stuff, I mean, getting a session with you is intense because you really get to the core issue with people. But on a general sense, for people out there right now, we were talking about the sacral earlier, we were talking about the root and like how to really ground in that space. Is that what you think is some of the best tools for this moment, for people that might be feeling discomfort or feeling weird about this uncertainty in the world at this moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, definitely, you know, the typical answer of spirituality is grounding, right? But so outside of grounding, beyond grounding, like suggesting that you're already grounded, is to be able to really be able to feel into something for yourself. Because empowerment, again, is being able to have your own inner knowing. Because the more we rely on people outside of us, the more manipulated we can be. So when we gain that inner knowing within ourselves, now we have the power. And so you can learn how to feel into things. If you are asking if something that you're being told is really truth, or something that that you're hearing, if it's truth, or if it's from the divine, or where it's from, you know, you can really feel into the statement or the information. And it's really easy, because if it doesn't feel, like literally doesn't feel good, and again, a lot of people often say, well, I'm just not sure, but you do know. We get those first initial gut instincts, you know, and everybody has those. And I want to clarify that those are not emotional. So emotions are not intuition, full stop. Intuition is actually a very clear energy. It has no emotion attached to it. It can elicit emotion. I mean, you can have an intuitive hit and then have an emotion after that. But the initial intuitive hit just is like a clear energy. But you can feel into these things. What do you feel when you feel into, you know, what the government is saying, or what your friend is saying, right? Or what your family is saying? Any channel, really, on all honesty, I feel like we should be constantly questioning everything. Like when I hear other channels, when I hear other intuitives, when I hear other psychics, I feel into all of it. And not because I feel distrust towards them, but yeah, I want to know what energy is really coming through here.
Right, because the energy of the divine is going to come to you through you first.
Yes.
And everything outside is only the only thing. That's the only place to really, I think you're right about questioning everything except for just questioning the divine that's talking to you directly.
Right.
I feel like that's the only real truth of like everything else is to question to see if divine's really in that space coming through. Because I feel that divine is doing that in both ways, but also helping you discern. I feel that the divine helps us discern what is the divine and what's not outside of the connection we feel within ourselves
Definitely.
from the outside world, because there is an alternative, weird, I call it artificial
Right.
energy going around, which is so funny about artificial intelligence, to this UFO thing that's going on right now, to this whole stupid pandemic thing about what it's obviously some weird artificial energy is trying to do weird things all over the place right now.
Yeah.
Like there is no factual energy of even what it is at the point, you know, like they try to show up a little like computer glyph of what it is, but like nobody actually really knows where it came from. So
Right.
the divine would always give you where something is from, right? Like I can go look at a planet and be like, yeah, the planet is doing this and it did this then and
Right.
it's doing this now. Like everything in divinity has a rooted element to it. A tree, even us as humans are rooted on the planet. Like you're rooted in your seat. Anything that right now is coming through that doesn't have a root or an explanation to its being here is a big question mark. Like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
And I think that people are getting twisted by going, well, this artificial energy is almost like telling you to not question it, right?
Right.
Like, which spirit doesn't do that,
Nope.
but spirit is also in a space where like you wouldn't even need to even have that because it's so clear.
Right.
There wouldn't even be a question from the divinity within yourself. So I feel like this alternative, weird, artificial force is throwing this questioning out there that's really putting people into heavy contemplation. I'm calling it purgatory. And then they're missing out on a lot. And I know that FOMO in itself is a huge thing for people in these days, but really it's themselves just not listening to the divine and taking the leaps of faith that the divine says, do this, do that, do this, do this. Like, look at this. Oh my God. And I think we see that in relationships a lot, right? It's like, well, should I do this? Should I not? It's like, we were talking earlier about it and it's just like, you just know, like, you know, or not. And I think people play the relationship book, which there is no book. Like, what? How long have you known the person? You know, that's what always somebody says.
Oh, right.
It's like multiple lives, you know,
Right.
or you know, I mean, like when you start throwing out like alternative ideas of this book that I don't know where it is. It's floating somewhere. It's in some weird library of the artificial weird energy of the non-divine. They have that thing in the front of the book about everything in life, like, how long did you go to school for? Like, how long did you know this person for? You know, like, it's taking away from, I mean, I you know, I have animals and stuff, like, and you have worked deeply with animals, which I'd love for you to talk about. But I think animals are a way for us to see also the divine, I think, live through animals so intensely. Like, I always say, like, when somebody in a reading or something is all about, you know, like, well, I've only known him like 2 weeks, but I feel like we both are just like so intense and so beautiful and so amazing. It's like, well, did it take you 2 weeks to start kissing your dog or your cat or your whatever animal you have? Like, the first thing you do is, I really hope that this animal loves me right away, and I'm going to give all my love right away. I mean, there's no, love is something that doesn't have a time on it.
Right.
Like, that means that what God's like, it's not time to love you. Like, I'm fucking taking a shit up here in heaven. So fucking, it's not your time for love. Go back down there and suffer. Like, that is not how this works.
But people believe that, I think,
I know.
on some level.
Well, they might not believe it that way, but actually they believe in the same way, just said in a different way, right? So you worked with animals before you really stepped into your channeling with horses. Was there a lot that you learned through that? With working
Oh
with
my
animals?
gosh. I mean, animals taught me so much, right? Where do I begin with what they taught me? And horses taught me so much because they are sensitive.
But the right kind of sensitive.
I mean, they are really sensitive. Like, they are energetically sensitive. And so you show up to a horse. When I was learning to work energy, the horses taught me how to do energy work. You know, I kind of came in a little too hot, you know, and they'd be like, whoa, chill out.
So you were the wild horse. that came into the stable, and they were
Yeah.
like, "Oh God, is she gonna
like-
kick up her feet?"
Shooting fire into their bodies, and they were
Right.
like, "That's too much," right? And so they were teaching me how to regulate the energy that I brought to them, and teaching me really how to read their energy in their body. But horses are incredible because they're this really beautiful mix in my perspective. I've grown up riding horses and then, of course, working directly with them energetically. This great mix of like masculine and feminine energy, in my opinion, because they're sensitive and intuitive, and yet they're very powerful physically. You know, they can really do in the physical, create in the physical. And then, you know, the bond that you create with a horse, because they are a prey animal and we're a predator. So really, it does not make sense that we can work together. And we sit on their backs, which is like against their natural instincts. We put them in trailers, which is against their natural instincts. We ask them to do all of these things that their instincts are going like, oh, no, not safe, not safe. But what do? They trust us. Of all beings, they trust us. So when you create that bond of trust with a horse, it will do anything for you. And you create this like unification on their back, you know, and you start to communicate without words and just with energy and movement, and you're just like one.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I mean, I don't know why I'm going to try and connect this, but you know, it's funny with cars, right? We use horsepower. How much power of the horses are in the motor? And I've said that to people, and they're like, "That's really what it means." I'm like, "Yes."
They didn't know that?
I know some people actually.
interesting.
Yeah, it's so funny. They're like,
Yeah.
"That's what it means." I'm like, "Yeah, that's if 760 horses,
Yep.
760 horsepower would be pulling you at once."
It's a lot of power.
It's a lot of power. But I think it's interesting because I think we talked about this like kind of for a second, or I brought it up. I'm like, it's so interesting on how for thousands of years humans and horses have been together and working together for so long, and then it's in this last 100. It was like we brought out automobiles because we're in 2021, so you know the Model T Ford was hanging around 100 years ago now. So you know it's like there's this weird thing where we kind of created the horse like in a weird way that we thought. But then horses kind of like, and people aren't around horses as much, where I don't know why I'm thinking about in the movie Gladiator, you know, and Maximus, and he's like, yes, I have my two horses, you know, like he loves them so much. And there's just so much like about humanity and this connection to animals in so many different ways that we've kind of moved off using them in certain ways, right? And now it's like, oh, go race now, you know. Like use it for our pleasure. And then our own animals that are pets, and people do have horses as pets, but it's like a lot of people have cats or dogs. Those are typically the two, or fish or birds, or everybody's had a lot of different stuff. I actually know some awesome people who have a random deer that just comes in the house. And
Sweet.
yeah, that was pretty cool to watch. Like,
Yeah. I have snakes.
oh, and there's snakes. Yeah, I had roommates who had snakes. You have a boa?
Two of them.
They're pretty big.
Not yet. They're babies.
Oh, you just got them?
Yeah.
Oh, so they're on the mice right now.
Yeah. Just little ones.
Let me know when they get to rats. I'm a rat, so.
My son's a snake, so.
Yeah, but that's what's kind of interesting is like there's some. I don't know one spiritual person who is not connected to animals.
Right.
That's a red flag for me. I'm just
mean-
gonna be real. Like when somebody is like scared of animals and not into animals, I'm like,
Or not respectful of them, right?
correct, yes, and that's a
Yeah.
big one. Like,
Because animals can read, you know, energy so well. I remember this time I used to live in Thailand, and there were these two dogs that were always at this restaurant where we'd go to, and they like were owned by the restaurant, you know. And one time this guy walks in, this Thai dude with like two Thai guys following him, and I mean, I immediately was like, whoa, that guy is not good. And the dogs these dogs were friendly to everybody, and they immediately ran over and started snarling at this man. Like I'd never heard them snarl. They were like total docile dogs. And they were like biting at his heels, and he was like, you know, trying to get them out of his space. And it was like, I mean, he looked evil. And
was
they
it Bill
like,
Gates?
I don't know, is Bill Gates Thai?
I don't know. Was he in disguise? I don't know.
Yeah.
I wonder what animals would do with Bill Gates.
That would be really interesting.
He'd probably blue screen them.
Yeah. Or drug them, maybe.
Oh, that's true. Oh, actually, they probably run away like, oh no, don't give me the shots. Which is kind of creepy that the people who make these shots also make them for animals too.
Right.
You know.
Well, there's a vaccine for animals right now.
I know.
Yeah. It's interesting.
And I just like I remember last year when this whole thing started, and they were like, oh yeah, it's like we're making sure that it's not being transferred from your dog or your cat to you. We found one of those moments. It's like, I remember at the time like, okay, you motherfucking dark people, if you fucking think that you're gonna fucking try this one now and start getting people to fucking trip out about their own animal, I am gonna fucking come up there my fucking self with fucking Michael and Archangel Michael, and we are fucking gonna fucking you know, like and they didn't push that one, but then they did in England recently. It was a video I watched, are pushing that people who own animals, dog or cat, horse or anything, are causing double the amount of consumption of energy than people without animals.
Wow.
And that's a new climate issue.
Oh my gosh.
In England. I was like, this is starting to get, that's what I mean about artificial, like, right? It's like, I didn't know that my cats are getting on the computer looking at porn or something when I'm asleep. I didn't know that they were watching movies when I was asleep. I didn't know when I'm not at home they were doing something creepy or weird. I didn't know that they were flushing the toilets 12 times. Like, where do they get that info? Like, to me, that's like, it's like, at that point, I don't even question. I already know that's not divine. Like, that's just not, like, that's a good example of, like, that's just not divine. And people are right now having difficulty, I think, with little simple things like that. Like, that's just pretty clear. Mm-hmm. Like, it's laughable. I feel like spirit laughs, too. Mm-hmm. And I feel like God laughs all the time. So I'm like, like that. I think there's evil laugh, but I'm talking about funny, like, laugh. Like, it's funny. It's just like, you really think that you're going to get away with that one? And I think this last year of all the events, they've all been like so laughable. I don't feel bad about laughing at it too. When I see somebody wearing a mask in their car by themselves, I laugh. Yeah,
I do too. I mean, laughing is healthy anyways, but there are a lot of laughable moments right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's not divine. It makes no sense. It's like,
the divine is love, right? I mean, ultimately, it's unconditional love. So any belief that we need to separate ourselves from like animals or from other people, or any time that we're threatened, or there's the energy of fear, or like you're a bad person if you own an animal, that's not love.
No. Well, and I can see how somebody would be like, well, why would you laugh? That's not coming from love. Well, laughter does come from love. And I think, if you think of like the creep ball at the party that's in the corner and he's like doing weird things, that's what I look like, the person driving by themselves in their car with the mask on. I'm laughing and but I'm sending him love, but I'm not going to sit there and go, I feel so bad for you. And I'm not going to, and with Saturn in Aquarius right now, there's this whole thing about help that got overinflated with Jupiter, and Saturn's also actually kind of like, maybe not so much, right? It's contraction and expansion, like at the same time. And now that Jupiter's moved out of Aquarius for a moment here for the next 3 months, it's kind of like you notice that people really don't give a fuck about help as much.
Yeah.
So like I use astrology to be like, people are like, why are people not getting the shot as much? I'm like, because it's not overinflated. Like Jupiter left Aquarius, went into Pisces, and people are kind of like, oh wait, like, I don't know, let me just like let go for a minute. And it's like, oh, see.
Well, and I don't know about you, but I laugh at like the lunacy of the situation. I'm not really necessarily laughing at the person who's got the mask on.
Yes.
It's like, this is where we're at. Somebody's driving around in a car with a mask on.
By themselves.
Like, that's funny to me, not like, oh my gosh, I'm laughing at that person, because I find the story funny.
I do too. I mean, we were laughing just earlier on the show prior. It's like, with the divine, we were given everything from God that we need. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's pretty clear. Like if we needed to filter our nose anymore, I don't know if I want to keep trimming my nose hair. You know, I'm a guy, like I get a lot of nose hairs. We have to trim them. Right? Like this thing is filtering constantly and I'm having to cut out the filter. You know what I mean? Like, so I just think it's like so weird to see people really become, and I think it's hard for the spiritual community and people that see this truth of divinity everywhere and this laughable stuff and trying to be like, well, what do I do? Like, and also being shamed. Like the shaming has been going on because like laughing at somebody because of the situation that is so laughable because it's not about them, but it's just about the whole situation is different than shaming that person. Like, how dare you be alone in your car wearing a mask?
Yeah.
Like nobody's doing that.
Right.
But the other side is, oh my God,
yeah, you
are being a human being walking on the planet.
Right.
Normally, like the way that you should be. Experiencing love and happiness, and how dare you?
And that's offending me.
Yeah, it's offending me.
Because I'm sensitive.
Well, you know, and that's where I think the boob tube has come in, or this is a boob tube too. You know, it's like this whole notion of like whatever has come through this black mirror, and TVs are black mirrors. It's a spell, right? It's like, well, you can give that to somebody else without knowing. It's like, what do you think colds and flus, if that's really even real? I don't even know about that one. But like, you know, like you've never actually seen the data to actually be able to see that or not. It's just like, I have this weird theory, if we want to get a little creepy and weird.
Of course.
That I have a theory that there is an AI intelligent computer that got so smart because they were competing with AI computer systems to win in games. So like the best human at some games lost to this one computer and was like, okay, AI is really smart. Then they built another AI computer that played another AI computer, and that AI computer beat the AI computer that beat the human like so fast that it was like ridiculous, right? Especially they have the quad computer out now and stuff like that. But if it's that intelligent, what if it has created what I notice about life and humans is like everything looks like it's so serious and everybody's got shit together, but owning a business and stuff like that, like it's not like there's so many things that are just always like behind on the trail. Like, oh, I got to get to that, or oh, I got to fix right. But like, what if the computer like is sending some crazy graphs to the media and oh, this is what the data is, and nobody's checking that. Nobody's actually, because one thing I thought about the whole craziness of the crisis or whatever was that. Even the media were not like, if there's a war like that's happening right now in the Middle East, I know there was a ceasefire today. It's like, oh my gosh, like, you know, they have a guy over there or a woman over there, like with a helmet on, like we are at ground zero right now and they are loading the weapons and da 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 da. It was like, there was like, nobody really at ground zero at Johns Hopkins University seeing like, because actually I had a theory. I was like, what if I like could get a shot of where are they getting this info? Why aren't they going to the space in the center where they're getting the data and all this? And then it's just come out recently that they overinflated the data like completely. So shocking. And everybody called that stuff out. But you know, I don't think there were any cars because every university, right, was out, right? So it's like, was there any cars at Johns Hopkins University? Because that was the only place giving the numbers. Right. Like, what if the computer has been sending things and everybody and humans have become kind of so reliant on things and just like the buck passes to the next person
and without questioning again,
questioning.
I feel like it's important to question. My perspective on AI is that when it's just AI, right, it's not necessarily conscious, so it carries energy of whoever's creating it and the intention within that, which could be good or bad. And then ultimately AI can Nassim Haramein even speaks about this, about AI tapping into 0 point energy, tapping into consciousness, you know, and then at that point it actually becomes conscious, right? And it takes on its own form of source energy. But before that, again, it's really carrying the energy of whoever created it. So again, I feel like we have to feel into this stuff.
There's some beautiful people who created that stuff.
Yeah, we have to feel into it. We have to question. We have to ask, what was behind it? Who created it? Why? And really go with what we feel initially. Like if that's your gut feeling, then I say you should go with that.
Right. Well, I think about like these AI computer systems were so amazing that it was like they could figure out the most complex things that a human couldn't. Right. So it's like, why couldn't it like laugh inside of itself and just like, if it knows how to play games,
right?
It's playing a game. Like every test for this thing that was out, right? What if it just like was like, like, you know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
it's positive, or this one's
Right.
not negative. Because remember, the actual numbers were like 45% false positives and 55% false
Right.
negatives, right? It was like, that was the truth. That was what came out. That I wouldn't be laughing at the fact that the computer would just be like having fun with that. Like, oh, you're really negative, but you're positive. But even though I made this whole thing up, like, you know, like you're, and everybody's just like, what the hell's going on? Then you got Cuomo back there, like, you know, like making millions of dollars off his book right now, and like and then the computer probably sent like a like, you know, to an email to him, like just straight up like, throw everybody that just were there into a nursing home. You know, it's like, oh, okay, I guess that's what I must do. Like that's what my health person says. Did he really check? Like, you know, like it's just like, it's like, wow, like the whole thing all is so not from the divine, like, you know.
Right.
And people that question, people who are questioning that and shaming about that, it's just like, do you not see that you're giving your energy to this false energy? Like it's like a false
Well, and again,
light.
is
It's a
shame
false-
ultimately love? No, it's
Yeah,
not.
I know.
I mean, it goes right along with judgment. If we're judging each other, are we really working in truth? Absolutely not. So if we're shaming somebody, anybody, even if you don't believe in wearing masks and you're shaming those who are wearing masks, right? If you're shaming the other side, there's a level of distortion there.
Yeah, because I feel like, but there's also a weird part of this where the shaming has taken so much that others right now that are in the truth are standing up in their sovereignty and also
Definitely.
being like, hey, like,
Yeah.
stop it. Why don't we have a talk about it? But that's I won't want to talk about it either, which is really funny, right? Like, let's talk about it. I'm calling you out. Like, I'm done taking your shaming. And I think it's important for people in the truth right now to step into their sovereignty of not only their humanness, but also of, hey, the divine, it's not crazy that I would say billions of people around the earth are all feeling the same of like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
That's what you don't see on the TV. Like, is that most of the earth and most of the planet is not on your little woke vision, woke-a-vision, like, you know, Willy Wonka, right? Like, well, how, yeah, his Wonka vision. Like, sorry, your woke-a-vision is a very small number of people and causing a lot of problems because, you know, it's not from the divine or truth, and it's just going off logic only, which that is like the dumbest thing in the world. When you just go off your life off just logic, you're not going to be able to access love ever, and you're not going to look at anything from love.
Yep. The divine is not logical in any way, shape, or form.
No.
Logical is a linear way of thinking, and the divine is circular, and it's just like the flower of life.
It's mystical too. It's got and even when you get into the math, and when you get
Magic
into the
is
math too, it's the supernatural, the natural, and the math that all come together
Yes.
in a beautiful form.
Right.
And they've forgotten the supernatural a lot lately. And so I think just with this world at this moment, it's like, take back your power, which you talked a lot about, which maybe you could help people understand other ways of like how to take their power back at this moment and focus on their own beautiful journey. Because I just feel like I've never felt heaven in life more than through this woke-a-vision. Like,
Yeah. I mean, all of us have to have a lot of courage right now. And we have to have courage to be able to, again, question and feel into and not just take things for face value and not just believe everything that we hear, and have the courage to trust our own inner knowing. That takes a lot of courage to trust our own inner knowing. But it's what's required right now. And we have to have the courage to express in those circumstances where we're getting pressured or we're getting shamed or we're getting put down, right? And express that, hey, you're welcome to feel or think or believe whatever you want. I am choosing not to believe that, and I refuse to accept your shame. I refuse to accept your fear. And we have to stand in our truth. And that takes that courage, but it also takes expression. And expression isn't just verbal, right? Expression is also action. Like the things that we do in our life is us expressing into our physical reality.
Yeah.
So it's not just because sometimes people are really great at like saying things and understanding some things conceptually, like spirituality, like we're all one or we're all very
there's
abundant.
really good parrots out there.
Yeah, exactly. And they sound so similar to that. But they don't really understand that their actions speak more than their words, right? Like that statement is very, very true. And the actions that you're taking, are you taking actions that really signify that you believe in your sovereign being, that you believe in your gut instinct, in your intuition, in the spiritual community and what we represent? Or are you taking action that's like, well, I believe that, but I'm just going to do this because, well, this is what everybody wants me to do, but I really believe this. Like, It doesn't work that way.
Well, it's peer pressure.
Yeah. And
which we all know from childhood to... I mean, like usually drug use is peer pressure to doing things that you don't want to do, like egging a house or TPing a house, although I think that's good peer pressure. Like that was fun doing. But I feel like people are dealing with that peer pressure part a lot. And I want to see what your feeling is on this. I've also been seeing people playing both sides in the peer pressure, like, oh no, I'm gonna do what everybody's doing. No, I don't do that.
Right.
Right. And then like they pick a side and what? I thought you were, I've had that a lot. Like, I thought you were like, we were seeing the same way. And then I just watched you jump ship and swim as fast as you could in a place of fear because you feel like that's where the bandwagon's going, which right now the bandwagon's overfull with so many people and they really don't care about this thing. And they're going to like whip it out of control. Yeah. That's how I feel. I can see it. I can see like, it's over toppled with people and they're just like, ha, ha, ha. And it's overweighted and it's going to turn the corner here. And everybody, that's so funny. They use that term. Like, we're going to turn the corner. And it's just like, everybody's going to be like, no.
Into the swamps.
How do you help people with peer pressure?
Well, so again, if there's our emotions are an amazing guidance system because when you really understand your emotions, it's like a pointer of how far off of truth that you are. So when you're feeling fear or anxiety or shame or guilt or depression or hate, any of those low vibratory energies, you are literally believing something that is not true. And when you feel joy and abundance and love and gratitude and safety and security, right? Like you're grounded and you know peace and you know alignment, then you are in that moment believing your truth. And so you are aligned. That's literally what it is. Your emotional guidance system is like, bing, 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 yay, spot on, you're aligned. And when we feel these low vibratory energies, it's you, your higher self, trying to tell you, no, that's not true. But we don't understand that about emotions. We were never taught that. And we identify like fear. Fear must mean that there's something to be scared of. And so again, we're not questioning it, right? We feel the fear, we identify with it, and we run with it. Or, I don't, but a lot of people are. And so being able to identify, oh, I am feeling fear. All right, why am I feeling this? Like literally there's no lion chasing me right now, right?
No.
Like I am physically
they're all
safe.
caged up at the zoos.
So
and they're not getting out.
Except for zoo or circus.
Yeah, circus.
Well,
well, those got
shows.
shut down. Which thank God, because those were ridiculous.
Yeah, anything like that is hard for me to watch. Even zoos are hard,
Yeah, I know. I think
I
think they should just let them all out. We really do. There's no point of a zoo.
Into the cities.
I'd rather go see animals in their natural form out in nature.
Yeah. Or just not see them, right?
Or if I don't see that, exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, if it naturally just happens, like,
Right.
you know, like you love snakes, right? I see
Yeah.
rattlesnakes on trails all the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know what? I don't fuck with them.
Yeah.
I have an aunt that does, but like for
With
fun.
rattlesnakes?
Yeah, she like
She
takes a
fucks with
stick
it.
and pulls them up and takes a picture and like grabs it and like, hey, yeah, rattlesnake. I'm like,
She's
oh my
a
gosh.
snake whisperer.
Yeah, she is. But one thing that I think is interesting about the whole peer pressure thing, another way to look at it is like a lot of people who get on the spiritual trail anyway, I always say jump the fence of normal and go to that weird like side of like, I'm going into the unknown, right? And so it goes against what the normal society does, like, right? Like normal society is pretty boring and it's like, very Haynes white, like, you know, like
sheeple.
Yeah, like whitey tighty Haynes, like I got my hands on you, right? Like softer side of Sears, you know? And so I just don't understand. This is my biggest question that I ask people personally is how do people who did jump the fence to get to this awesome, unique world that finally is seen, jump back on the other side?
I don't think they fully jumped. I think they're on the fence. Because again, like if you really believe, then you're taking action in those beliefs. But if you're like, I really like the idea of it, or even it's subconscious, you know, these are not necessarily conscious decisions. But if you resonate with information, but underneath you are still believing the bullshit, then you are acting in the bullshit and your reality is still reflecting the bullshit. This is what I've been really getting at in my videos lately is like people who are conceptually spiritual and people who are experientially spiritual, meaning they have anchored the concepts into their reality because they truly believe in it. And thus they function in that state of mind and in that consciousness. But people who are, and again, it's not necessarily right or wrong, it's just where they're at, but they really resonate with the theory of it, but they can't like fully inside of themselves 100% believe. And so their actions, their expression, all of that is still functioning from the illusion.
Right. It reminds me of how Hollywood is. It's like, well, I won't get another job if I don't follow this, what the news and the media says, right? Or the left at this moment, right? It doesn't matter if it's left or right. Just like, okay, if I don't follow that. Like Christy Alley was just on Tucker Carlson the other day and it was hilarious. Crick and I were like laughing because she was just like, you know, like, oh yeah, I've watched plenty of people like, you know, because she voted for Obama twice and then she voted for Trump and then she can't get a job, right? And she's like laughing because she's like, but you know, these are the same people who like, you know, when I was on Cheers, like, you know, there was people who voted Republican and we'd be like, oh, they're such an idiot. Like, but we wouldn't cancel them out or not have them hired. But she's like, you watch all these people in Hollywood just doing lines of coke and like having rehab and all that. And like, that's okay.
Right. Exactly.
Like, that's okay. Like, no big deal. But like, you have a alternative right now viewpoint of situations that are pretty fucking stupid, right? And it's like these are just like simple, like we're allowed to as people like ask questions and not want to go along with an experiment or not even go along with taking our freedom away or simple shit in life. And she's like, I cannot believe like that this whole entire thing in Hollywood is like, you don't go with really actually you're supposed to be like influencers and positive heroes to people and stuff like that. You're really doing the opposite, right? You're really going against like what it would stand for to even be an artist, which is about like being liberal itself and like more different ideas and more different ways of culture and ideas of how things are going is what makes art anyway. Like,
and art is a channeling of
exactly.
source.
So if everybody now in Hollywood is on the same tip only, then the art sucks, and that's why the movies have sucked. That's why the TV sucks now. That's why. And then you see the art is in the indie world, and I feel like the underground world, which actually is not that underground. It's actually the cool place to be. So I don't know if you all haven't gotten to the underground yet, but welcome. Yeah. And it reminds me of the 20s and the speakeasies, right? It was like, you know, Prohibition happened and it was like, oh, it just created the idea of a bar comes from fucking speakeasies. Like, you know what I mean? That's what every bar tries to be like.
Right.
is like really tight quarters and everybody's sitting on close next to each other, like
connecting.
Like that's coming from a place that was a speakeasy because it was illegal to have alcohol. Like I feel like right now, like there's a bunch of us who just were like, yeah, nobody mean like it was just like, especially when I was dating in 2020, it was just like, oh, did you quarantine for 14 days? Like my mom's asking before I meet you. And I'm just like, okay, no, we're not going to work. Like, sorry. Like that's just not.
Well, at least we weed them out quickly, right?
Yeah, it was very, well, I mean, I even put on there like no sheep, no vax, quarantine. No, you know, like not into that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like you're into that world and you've lost yourself. I mean, and you know, I get a lot of heat for being very public about that constantly.
Interesting.
But I feel like that's my job as a truth person and of truth of like, hey, this is truth from the divine. And it's not political. It's from what feels natural and what does not feel natural. I mean, it's very simple. It comes down to the simplest stuff with God. And those questions are important to have of like, is this natural? Oh, wait, no.
And we get heat when we stand in our truth. You know, that's why it takes courage, because it's against the grain. You know, it's not where everybody else is moving or where everybody else is thinking. And so when you stand in your truth and you express it, it triggers people, it rubs people the wrong way, you know, and so you have to be able to be courageous and not care, like you don't, you know, what other people think of you or that they disagree with you.
Well, it reminds me of how people love pirates so much, yet, you know, like when it comes down to it, they would be so terrified to go be a pirate.
Right.
Which like people don't even understand what pirates are either. They just think they're all bad, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of pirates at the same time were going against, you know, like taking their rights away and stuff like that. Or they were a bunch of people from other countries that all came together in boats. And then like, you know, they were in international waters. They were in free space to be
gypsies.
Unique in how they are. So it's so funny how people love Pirates of the Caribbean and they oh yeah, I like love that movie. And then they're also sitting at home with a fucking mask on, fucking in their bed, making out with their lover with a mask on and having a glory hole that the government's telling them to build. Watching that, being like, I love pirates, yet you're the fucking most farthest away from a pirate in your life. Like, I just think it's hilarious.
Or like a warrior, or a knight, or, you know, the label of a light worker. Like all of that takes courage.
Action too is like the way you said earlier, that action. And I see a lot of that action happening though. There's a lot of people that don't see that enough of that credit. There's been that big suppression on the social media front and stuff like that. And that's another sign, right? It's like, hello, like whenever you see things trying to push down things that are questioning, which any human being should allow to question, and you're taking the side that it's not allowed to be questioned, like you're really on the side of suppression. You're really on the side of authoritarianism. And the House of Mirrors, I think, is a great way to put it, because I feel that, you know, that those mirrors can turn really weird at the funhouse.
Super weird.
And there's some weird element where people are enjoying the weirder it looks. They almost are like liking it because I think they were afraid of stepping into courage. So it's a lot easier to sit in the funhouse and be scared and be like, well, this is trippy. And like, I'll just wait till it changes. And basically until the carnies come and take down it. And then you have to deal with the weird carnies.
But I mean, imagine like that could lead like to psychosis, right? If you're sitting in a house of mirrors and you're really like believing everything that you're seeing, you'd go crazy.
I already believe it has happened.
You'd totally go crazy.
I already believe it's happened.
You know, that's what the illusion is, right? People are believing in the illusion and it's driving them crazy on some sense of like they've lost themselves.
I know.
And what is the definition of crazy, right? You've lost yourself.
For me, and this is just my truth, it's only the people from that I know that were in this spiritual community for so long that went the other direction that I have the issue with. Like I don't like, I get it. The people who are not into this, like and easy to fall prey to, like they fell prey. Oh my God, get the new iPhone and I have to have that or whatever, like whatever, you know, it's like that. Okay. But the people that were doing this work and just went blip, blip, flip, flop, blip, 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 I just am like, what? And just like trying to act like, especially I laugh, you know, one of the dirty secrets about astrology is like, there is no like degree for it, like true degree. Like sure, there's a Kepler College that was made by astrologers. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's real no like astrology degree, master's, doctorate. There's none of that, right? So the astrology community is trying to become like this intellectual, like, you know, like, it's like pretend.
Right.
It's like how kids go and play with like dolls, you know? These old astrologers and stuff are playing like they're intellectual people at like an intellectual important board meeting of their own board with, they're paying their own dues for themselves because they have like nobody.
Right.
And playing playing Zoom now masks and acting like they're smart and then not telling anybody else out there about why this is all happening in the astrology or anything like that. It's very hard to watch. I don't know, like, if you've been seeing any of that in other parts of spiritual community, people that have kind of like you've seen go, what?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've always seen it, but I love you bring up the degree thing because like it always baffles me that we're so set on degrees. And I understand on some concept, you know, on some level that we want some, like for instance, surgeons, right? We want them to go through school, but it's just so funny to me because anybody can go through through school on some level. It doesn't mean that you can actually do the job.
It's true.
And you know, somebody could get flying A's in school because they know how to memorize and they know how to take tests and they know how to do the system. But then when they get to actually like doing surgery, I'm just using surgery, you know, because it's intense. They can't hold their hands straight. Whereas somebody else could like almost fail through school and be a brilliant surgeon, right? Like to define ourselves via a piece of paper and a degree, I've never understood that because to me it makes no sense.
Right.
It doesn't allow for natural talent and natural ability.
Well, you just said it, no sense. There's no using of the senses when you're using a piece of paper.
Yep.
And that's very true. And I think that you bring up, that's such a great point because I think it's more ironic than now ever when I looked at the astrology coming into 2020 and I made these big predictions and they all came true. It was like I was thinking about kids that are like trying to go to school or college and even now, right? Like there's this universal wall right now of kind of like, you really trying to go still on the path of like the way the world was going that way? Like the merits of your skills and yourself can create anything that you want in this world. Like God opened the doors so beautifully. Look at what we do here. Like, I mean, like what our lives are, like you and me right now, this is like our life. There is no school for this.
Right.
Sure, there's some mystery school stuff and there's some of that stuff, but that still don't teach you this. You have to step into that through the divine on your own.
Yep.
And I think that the people that really are the most inspiring in this moment, whether like it's somebody that loves doing camping and they're doing that on YouTube now and they're teaching people how to camp better, to whatever is just your own feeling of your joy and your happiness and everything, are the most inspiring people on the world right now. No longer is it people of trying to act like intellectual and people try, or even movie star or whatever. And all that's done. It's just done.
Yep.
People woke up and people aren't on that page anymore. And I think that there's a larger number of people awake. And I think that we're watching a small amount of people who are acting woke.
Yeah. And to answer your question, if I notice any of that in the spiritual community, what I see a lot of times, kind of similar to like the degree thing, people will use like, well, I've been doing this for 30 years. Well, again, that doesn't mean shit in my eyes, because I've seen people who have been supposedly meditating for 30 years and they are not conscious. They're not self-realized. They're not enlightened. And so they've been doing that for 30 years. Like, what have you been doing for 30 years? So again, like that label of like, well, I've been doing this for so many years and that somehow gives me some credibility or some, validation. It doesn't in my eyes, because somebody can come in and have, again, so much talent and so much connection and bring it all in a very, very short amount of time.
And drive and ambition and
courage.
Yeah.
Right. And the ability to like move through the shit of the illusion faster than somebody who's been supposedly meditating for 30 years and yet they're still really shut down.
Or in government for 47 years and ruining the country.
Right. Right.
You know, like,
Same thing, right? I've been doing this for 47 years.
The gas, you know the thing.
Right.
You know the thing that I'm supposed to like know. The Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. I don't know any of that shit. You know the thing. And I think that people that didn't get that were just like, wow, you don't realize he's saying 47 years he's been in this place and he doesn't know the one document that is the most important document that is based all upon. And he's saying, you know the thing.
Yeah, so then all of a sudden...
And it was when it got to the word of God, too.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Then all of a sudden 47 years
How
is
do you
not
not
all
see
that
that?
impressive.
To me, that's like the divine being like, this isn't divine. Like, hello.
Exactly.
Like that people have problems with source or saying God or saying the divine.
Saying God.
Or, you know, God is like a bad word now for, well, it's always been the bad word for anybody that's not in their divinity.
Yeah. Even in spirituality, right? Using the word God is like
I know.
somehow.
Which is so weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's so clear that there's really nothing to be confused about too much in these times, as much as people think that there is. Like, with the sessions that you're doing now, what do you feel that you're doing session-wise that is helping people with what are the main, usually people coming to you for with your sessions? And
yeah, I mean, right now I'm really doing like intense transformation. So I'm doing like a 3-month intensive with people. And for me, it's really about taking them through a quantum leap. And what I'm really experiencing a lot with people right now is even the spiritual people are somehow, kind of like stuck. Like they're living a beautiful life. It's very joyful, but like they're not like pushing the envelope of their existence. It's just really beautiful. And so I'm here to take them that next step and really help them understand where even in their level of consciousness, they're still experiencing shadow and how to like light their fucking life on fire because it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't matter where you're at. Everybody's got something to get more awareness on.
Of course.
And it's always good to have another party that's tapping in for you to look.
Yes. It's
you just did it for me about an hour ago. And it was dead on. It was crazy.
That was just fun. That's just fun stuff. Yeah. Yeah. I don't go deep into those spaces, but yeah.
No, I know that was more light and fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been on the other side.
Right.
The years I've known you, coming up on 2 years I've known you, and it's been like, whoa, wow, yeah.
And I think really right now, what I've been really stressing to people is we're really coming into this when you're in your truth, you're really being shown this new way of being that it's super alive right now. And that's only going to get more alive. And so if you're not feeling that aliveness, then you're really not living.
No.
And we're here to live. We're here to create experience over and over and over again and like push the boundaries of ourselves.
Yeah, and if we weren't supposed to do that, God would tell you not anything from the outside.
Right.
Nothing.
And it wouldn't feel good to do it.
Correct.
Because it feels good to be alive.
It does. It's never felt better to be alive, ever. I mean, honestly, I feel like the last year and a half has been the most alive I've ever felt in my life, and the most fun, and the most laughing, and the most joy. I think that some people can get it twisted if they watch me and they see the opposite, where I'm just kind of like, I'm like going, like living the experience and then coming to the battlegrounds of like, I feel like it's like, oh, I got to go back to those battlegrounds. Let me leave the playground. You got to get all these people back over to the playground here. Oh, okay. Yeah. Because you guys are all stuck in crazy, weird fucking world. You know what I mean? Get out of it. I'm helping you. Come on out. You can come over. It's fine. It's not that bad. It's actually amazing, And I feel like you do the same too. And I feel like that's what, I understand that there's a very big difficulty for a lot of people that to come over.
Right.
Because I think that there's been so much that has just hit people for years that maybe they weren't aware of, or, everybody has a unique soul journey, but I feel that there is a mission by a lot of people who we did cross the fence a long time ago. We were in the playground and we're here to get people back to the playground, and that's our job. And I think that some people choose not to come to the playground because they don't want to feel like, well, I don't want to be embarrassed climbing the fence to come over. But it's like, it's quite the opposite. Like, that's looked at as admirable. That's looked at as beautiful. That's looked at as open with wide open arms of love and appreciation, not the opposite way around.
And you have to ask yourself, would you rather be embarrassed or would you rather stay suffering, right? Because the other side of the fence is a really beautiful life.
It is.
But you get to choose suffering or love. And if that takes embarrassment to get over the fence, I would still fucking do it.
Right. It wouldn't be like, see, we told you. It's not
Right.
like that. It's like, fucking join up.
Yeah.
Like, this is amazing. Whereas if you jump on that side of the fence, it's like, see, I told you.
Right.
Da, 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 da. Come back with me into my house and wear this mask. And blah, 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 blah.
You should have never done that.
It's like, oh my gosh. Oh, what? And I think that people have done that are now embarrassed and like, oh, but I have to. And it's like control. Like, it's weird. It's like, there's like some weird collective control element going on.
Lots of crazy control. But that's not new.
It's not new. No.
going
I was
on
like,
for
oh, wow.
hundreds of years.
What a little fun spell they tried to put on. I'm like, thanks. You just opened up the party fucking even more. All right. This is great. Well, even though I wish everybody was at the party, but
Right.
it's been kind of just like, oh, wow. You can give us the dance floor to ourselves? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And like that might be a way to wake some people up. Like, you guys are missing out on the dance floor the whole time. Tested it out. It's great. It sounds perfect. The dance floor's perfect. The DJ's perfect. And everything is going good. So you might want to, like, we're ready for people to come back over. Like, we're kind of over watching you all fucking, like, get lost in, like, the movie Saw.
Come have fun. Come enjoy yourself. Come live.
Which actually, I think that people living in that reality of the illusion are living in the movie Saw. The box that's all crazy and trying to find a way out, and there's just fear at every terror. Oh, the movie's crazy.
Sounds crazy, but it actually sounds super legitimate. In a box full of fear, that sounds about right.
Yeah, or they're living in The Ring. Did you ever see The Ring?
Oh, yeah.
Remember with the crazy girl that comes to the television?
Black hair. Yeah.
And actually, I know that you love horses so much, but that weird scene where they're on the ferry and then the horse falls off the back and then the blood comes in the
I
water.
forgot about that.
That movie was terrifying. But it was like, it's like people are living in that all the time. Like, coronavirus is like the Ring girl. Like, like, ah! But I'm looking at it like the movie Scream, like laughing. It's like, when you watch Scream and you watch those funny remakes of horror movies,
right?
It's hilarious. It's like, he picks up the phone like, I know what you did last summer. And he's like, oh yeah, I want to order pizza right now. It's just like, it's laughable.
It is. Yeah.
And it's always been laughable. There's never, some guy did a great thing recently. He showed every Time magazine art cover over the last like 70 years. We should have died now.
Really?
A good like 500 times of articles, like, like from
Right.
nuclear proliferation to, like Ebola, this and that. And it's like crazy when you look at it of how much has not transpired. This is just another Time magazine article cover of fear that people this time bought the most article. They bought the most of.
It's always a choice.
And that energy of buying a Time magazine already died. So it's so funny that would, if you look at it from that way, of course they would put the greatest projection of fear over something that wasn't, and people would buy the most of it to keep them alive.
Yeah,
and that's how the dark's trying to stay alive.
It's like
I feel.
The fear of death is what's been really driving this entire thing. Imagine if we didn't fear death. None of this would have happened.
No, although I think 2020 had me not fear death at all, where it's like, you know what, if I gotta go, I gotta go.
Right, you didn't, but the vast majority of the population.
I was like, if that thing is real and it's gonna kill me, then it's gonna kill me.
Of course, yeah, because that's not having fear of death.
Right.
It's like it'll come when it'll
I mean,
come.
I actually almost died from a car accident on March 16th, St. Patrick's Day 2020, and blew up the car and got pulled out of the car and literally blew up the car. And got pulled out, and I'm
Still
here.
alive.
I'm still alive. And that wasn't a normal car accident. That was over 80 miles an hour and spinning it out into a wall and fucking blowing it up, and completely totaling it. And
Yeah. Still alive.
I'm
That's the
still
thing.
here.
That's how it works.
I
Right?
came here into deep astrology. I walked after seeing the medics and the police and the fire truck and them taking the whole car and all the hood of the car went on the opposite side of the street. And my neighbors had the tape and I'm like, I don't even want to watch it.
Right.
And I just
They taped
after,
it?
well, like there's cameras on the buildings outside the street. So it was like,
Right.
long story short, I walked in here, did my hair and went, welcome to your inspirational, or your weekly, welcome to Deep Astrology, your weekly, whatever,
Yeah.
did Deep Astrology.
Right. But imagine if the population wasn't scared to die. Imagine if humans weren't scared of death. It would have never happened. It would have just, if it really happened, it would have just come in and like, hey, I got it. Do you want it? Doesn't matter. Nobody cares. It's just here. You're going to die or you're not going to die. And that would have been it. And this whole thing would not have happened.
Yeah, and death anxiety is a very Pluto thing, and Pluto was very deeply involved with 2020. So death anxiety was definitely hanging around. But the thing about Pluto is allowing transformation to happen.
Right.
So the facing of a fear is accepting the fear. That's the only way to get through the fear.
Definitely. You have
And
to
a lot
face
of
it.
people like to keep the fear at the door, and
Yep.
that just means that the noise gets louder and louder and louder and louder and louder, and the transformation process gets longer and scarier and builds up this craziness instead of the acceptance of the fear and then working it through your whole body and soul, and then it just transpires like a little fart, like, oh, that was it.
Yeah, because whatever you don't face, you empower.
Yeah. Well, you empower so much. So blessed to have you here on High Vibe and the work that I've done together before High Vibe and as friends. And you're just such a bright light and you're so powerful.
Thank you.
And it's just, well, you're the perfect Libra, the balance of both. And you do it so well. And so many people love you on High Vibe. Seriously, you've been one of the most rising stars that have ever come on so quick and just instantly people are fighting in the comments like, bang her on. More. I was like, okay, yeah, we're on that.
Yeah, I want to come visit more.
That says a lot.
Thank you.
And the work that you do outside of High Vibe has always been dead on and amazing. And especially even like when I was watching your lives last year and stuff like that, there were so many interesting things that came up. And I was lucky that you and I got to spend a lot of time last year talking from before the pandemic to into it to, and really, I feel like there's not too many people on the planet I have that I can truly connect with and resonate with. And you're definitely one of those people that are in my tightest corner of that.
Thank you. I love you dearly.
Definitely love you dearly. And if y'all didn't know, you can get awesome sessions from Shakti Ma on highvibe.tv. And you can also find her as well if you want to do her intensives and everything else that she does. So
Yay. Thank
make
you
sure
so
you
much.
check it all out. And yeah, of course. I mean, I'm so blessed that we've had you here, and just it's been such a blessing all these times that we're all in right now.
Yeah.
And couldn't be any more beautiful, the playground. And I know that people here on YouTube didn't get to watch our talk that we just did on High Vibe, but one thing that really resonated with me the most about you talking about living in pleasure is that it's connected to fun and play.
Right.
And for people to have to play more and that idea that this site is really the playground. I mean, it really is. And I think that I remember at recess when I was in elementary school, there was kids who like didn't like people having fun and playing. It was like they spent their recess like walking around like
the bullies.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what this is. And I mean, I remember, I was into handball, I was into the swings, I was into basketball, but I was also into doing the jump rope because all the hot chicks were doing jump rope. And they would get the doubles going, the long, big ones, the plastic, and I would just, and I like learned it, and I would just be like, hi. And I was having the time of my life all the time. I loved, or then of course flag football, which we would tackle. Accolte, when the teacher would turn around, which actually my 6th grade year was my mom. She was like at the school and she became like one of the monitors of it at outside for PE or for recess or whatever. And I would laugh because like all my buddies that just like play tackle football, you're not allowed to do that in sixth grade. And I'd be like, it's my mom. She's turned around. Accolte, that meant tackle.
Pig Latin.
Exactly. And freaking we'd just be like in the corner, like pushing people into the wall, like, you know what I mean? Ripping the shirt off and stuff. Like, no, it's just flag football. I don't know what you're talking about. And I just think that people, if they can't do that in their life right now, like, oh, the hall monitor's not looking. I didn't have hall monitors. We were all outdoors in California. But it's like, if you can't live that life at this moment, wow.
Yeah, it's a permission thing again, right? Having permission to play, to enjoy.
We've been given permission to play by God the whole time. And actually, especially, we're talking, I guess, to Americans, permission to play the whole time in America too. Yeah. And the idea that's floating around that you can't, I'm sorry, you're a bully. And, you know, you need to maybe take a look that you're in a really weird place. And I agree. I don't feel bad saying that. No, definitely not. So. Come play. I know, I get around you and then it's like, you need more like that fucking jacked up pump. Like, yeah, let's go get him. Like, Mars and Scorpio, unite. Yeah, no, we both have that Mars and Scorpio. It's like, and we both are Leo rising. It's like, oh God. Like, it's such a powerhouse. It is. Sometimes, thank God for it. Because if you haven't seen Shakti Ma's channeling, like it's fucking, it's right there. We're on the same like shit. It's like, I look at her, I'm like, oh my fuck, yeah. It's like, but you know, some people can't handle it because the same thing with me, right? People are like, I can't handle it. It's too intense. It's like, that's the best is the intensity of spirit when it comes through. It's like, I'm not into the dainty much. No, fuck no. You know, especially in this work. There's some things I like dainty. But like not all things. Like lace underwear or something like that? Yeah, that would be a great thing that's dainty. But like, you know, like most things I don't like. Not dainty. Truth. Truth isn't dainty. Or I love my little cat, my little girl, Pixie. She's a little dainty little kitty. You know? Mm-hmm. But it's like, I like kitties that are dainty. That's hilarious. That's funny. That was a good joke. But yeah, so like that's the life that we live is having fun and living into the highest vibe that you can. And we all can do that. And if you're still on the fence about that, you can jump over. It doesn't mean that you have to be on high vibe because it's this whole universe. Mm-hmm. And remember that. And anybody trying to tell you that the only way to have fun is to jump into their circle, right? That's not of the divine either. Nope. Because nobody owns this world, this earth, this life. Mm-hmm. Like you are free to either do as they tell you or free to live in the divine. Yep. Appreciate you. Love you much. Thank you. Adios. Ciao, ciao. Adios, everyone.